good to be back with you. So in the last few videos, we were focusing on being open, being sensitive, and being aware of suffering. So if you remember, that was the first important skill to cultivate compassion. And the second part is to do something about it that is not just good for the short term, but most importantly, good for the long term. So how do we do that? So say if there's something broken, say a faucet is broken in your home, you probably don't just put a band-aid on it, right? You probably look into it and see which part is leaking and look into the structures of the pipe and carefully examine it to see the mechanics and how it works. And that's how we can provide a long-term solution, addressing the root problems. So similarly, when we are going to address our human suffering, we want to learn how our mind, or at least how our brain works. So that's what I will be talking with you about today. So we are going to look into this part of our brain that we call old brain, and this part of our brain that's newer in the evolutionary history that we give it a name now, a new brain. Okay, so the old brain is older in the evolutionary process. So this part of our brain has a lot of very similar structures and similar functions as many animals. So it takes care of survival, food, sex, and being secure in a group. And it also is the part that does the fight, flight, or freeze kind of responses. And as human beings, we have this new brain. This new brain is capable of doing a lot of tricks. Like we can strategize, we can plan, we can do math, we can do abstract reasoning, we can have logic, we can ruminate, we can imagine. So see, this is very cognitive, and this new part has a lot of powerful abilities. Okay, so now let's try to understand how these two parts of our brains work together to make human beings, and how are they helpful, how are they sometimes problematic. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how the two parts of our brains working together to do something helpful. So just like now there is a pandemic, we have this old part of our brain that cares about survival. And we have then this new part of our brain that is very good at thinking, researching, problem solving. So that's how we are able as human beings to be looking at measures and to invent vaccine and medicine that can potentially help. And however, sometimes, even in the same pandemic, our brains may be giving us trouble. I don't know about you, but in the beginning of the pandemic, I definitely went panic shopping a little bit. I was noticing that my old brain was really concerned about survival and really concerned about safety. And then I watched my new brain after reading some news, after reading some posts from social media, started to go wildly imagine in all kinds of scenarios. And so when I went to the grocery store, I saw empty shelves, and that really triggered my old part of the brain that cares about food. And then my mind, my smart new brain, immediately go there. We are going to run out of food tomorrow. Tomorrow, if you come back to the supermarket, there's no food. So, boom, it went there. And then the two parts working together, I shopped. So that's how our brain works. And in scenario like a pandemic, I believe that more people should be able to understand where do people with hoarding issues come from. So imagine if this caring about survival and thinking about worst case scenario kind of situation is more generalized in our day-to-day lives. So from this fear of not having enough kind of place, we can start to think about ways that things or not having things may be problematic. And so for people with hoarding issues, holding on to things, collecting more, actually comes from the two parts of our brain that everybody has. So I will share a different kind of example that is more kind of fueled by the old brain from a wanting to belong, wanting to be a part of a group kind of place. Okay. So many people with hoarding issues have things that make them feel good about themselves, that make them feel likable or valuable as a person. So it comes from this old brain wants to belong. And then, for example, one may think, see, now it's the new brain problem solving. So the old brain says, I want to belong. I want to be liked. And the new brain says, okay, how do we do that? Then we gotta be very good at something. We either need to look very attractive, or we need to look very smart or be very smart, or we gotta be very interesting, or we gotta be very good to people. So depending on how the new brain solves the problem, we may see people collecting a lot of stuff that is not for them. It's for other people so that they can be gift giving. Somebody may like this item. I don't know who right now, but somebody someday may like something that I happen to have, and at that time I can give that to them and they would like me. Or I've got these books, these art supplies from when I was a teacher, for example, and I gotta hold on to it because that's how I show people who I am, and that's how they're gonna like me. That's how they're gonna think that I'm a valuable person. So these are things that many people with hoarding issues suffer from. This is not your fault, and this may sound silly, but you know, this is human nature. If it helps you to feel better, I would share one of the example that I just had today. So today, when I was preparing to record this video, I was thinking from my old brain, hey, I recorded a few videos already, and I really want people, whoever watching it, to like me, to think that I'm good, so to be part of a group. I want a sense of belonging. And then here comes my smart new brain trying to solve the problem. So my new brain says, oh well, if you were gonna have that happen, you gotta read a few more books. You gotta dig into that literature. And you gotta perhaps dress up. And so then the new brain goes on, and even went up to imagining who will be watching this. What if the famous Paul Gilbert, who is the creator of compassion-focused therapy, is watching this? Oh my God, how is he going to like what I say? How is he going to hate what I say? Oh my God, I gotta read 10 more books, 20 more books, so that I'm smart enough. And then as I ruminate, fear comes. And I almost paralyzed. So I believe that many of us, many of you who struggle with hoarding issues, this is probably not a very unfamiliar scenario for you. There are something that you want so much, and you start to get into this perfectionist kind of mentality, and then you procrastinate because you fear that you are not going to be perfect, and then you paralyze. So feel free to forget about whatever I said in this long video, but if there's one thing that I can ask you to consider, that is, can we kind of learn from our animal friends? Sometimes return to the basic, the simple things. So think about how animals, when they want to be liked, when they want to be a part of a group, what do? They simply show up. Monkeys don't bring their books. Chimpanzees don't put on makeup. Can we be simple and brave, just like our animal friends sometimes? I aspire you to give it a try.